Night 2, Chargers Chiefs. Do we get the same old Chargers, or do the Chiefs show up after last year's Super Bowl debacle? I don't know. So far, it's an interesting situation, but it's happy to know there's another game on tonight. How we doing? Yeah, well, we're not. They're not in the U.S., so you never know what could happen. No, lots of penalties. The offense is pretty much non-existent, except for a couple plays. This isn't the Chiefs that we're accustomed to. You know, you give the Chargers some credit, but they should be up more than what it is. They kind of had some brain farts at the end of the first half that allowed the Chiefs to creep back in a little bit. But right now, yeah, these aren't your daddy's Chiefs. Yeah. So right now, Worthy's out for the remainder of the game. Him and Travis, colliding on a crossing pattern. Little weird to see that from the Chiefs, who usually run crisp routes and kind of know what's going on. So that's a little interesting in itself. But I think the big question is, can this offense, get on track? Nope, not at all. But the run game has been adequate so far. I think maybe they should try, going back to that a little bit more. But right now, like I said, the Chargers have done just enough to have the lead, but they've left a lot of points out there on the field.
And the other and the funny part with the Chargers is that like you said, they're the KC's lucky to still be in this, but it's kind of a shock that this is a one possession game because the Chargers have looked like you said, they kind of struggled a little bit towards the end there, but like when the game started, they were going down the field with ease. I mean, we talk about we're used to this Kansas City defense being so well, but the Chargers really were not struggling with them very much.
Yeah, the first couple drives, especially, they looked sharp. They were moving the ball, so it was a situation of like what's going on. But then penalties took hold, and next thing you know, it's only 13 points where it should probably be 17 to 20 points. So it's I don't know if maybe they're just getting inside their own heads. You know, they're Herbie's played great. I don't hold anything against him. He's played great. It just seems like they're just ill-timed penalties and just some drops.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen too much balance as far as the run game. You'd think Hampton would be they want to Harbaugh would really want to run him out, but he's been in there a little bit. He's gone outside a couple times. Um, but the other side of it is Quentin Johnston right down the field on their first drive. Big catch and then the touchdown. I don't know last time I saw Quentin Johnston do anything kind of productive.
Yeah, it's funny. You figured that the Chargers were going to be run heavy right off the bat, but I think they kind of surprised the Chiefs and said, "Nope, let's start throwing it." The offensive line has played extremely well and held up, so it's given Herbie the chance to really sit there and dissect, that defense. And like I said, that first drive was great, but then second, third drive, Allen had a couple drops. They seemed a little off sync, but they're allowing the Chargers to throw the ball. The Chargers just have to be able to complete some passes and sustain drives.
Yeah, dangerous game to play fire with, of course, because the Chiefs don't look great right now, but all they really need is a couple of drives to get going, and not only they're right back in it, they probably right back to having a lead. So it's a dangerous game that the Chargers are playing.
Yeah, when you have the opportunity, you got to put the points up. That's all there is to it. When you have the chance, put the points, even if it's three, because like I said, this Chiefs offense is struggling. but you got to put up some points. Sevens are better than threes, but at least you're not leaving any points on the board right now.
Yeah, and I'm a little surprised that McConkey hasn't been featured. I mean, that was someone that came on really strong late last year, and a nice little security blanket option for Herbert, and we really haven't seen much of him in this. So I don't know if it's a play
No,
calling thing or Kansas City's just taking him out of the game.
no, Kansas City's taking him out. In watching the game, you kind of see it. He's had a couple. I think he's got 3 or 4 receptions. It's a conscious effort to take him out of there because Keenan Allen isn't going to beat you anymore. Keenan Allen is going to be situational, kind of find his way in the zone, kind of sit. He's not going to really, break this defense down. So McConkey's that guy, and they've been able to kind of bracket him and keep him in check. So at that point, I think you really got to start looking to the run a little more, get a little more balance. The second half, I think you definitely need to be more balanced.
Yeah, and they even called attention to it in the pregame show that Keenan Allen wasn't even on the roster a couple weeks ago or so.
Yeah, exactly. He got released. They brought him back. I think he still, can do something for this team, but he can't be the main guy. So it's a situation where you just kind of let him find his way, be the veteran, find these holes in the defenses, come up with a couple of maybe, third down conversions, things like that. But no, this is, Johnson and McConkey's team. These guys have got to really show out now offensively.
Now you're someone that's been a fan of Isaiah Pacheco in recent years. Of course, health permitting, he doesn't know, kind of beats himself up and doesn't stay on the field a whole lot. But he's one that we really haven't seen a whole lot of so
Yeah,
far.
that's the thing. I think the Chiefs are trying to figure out what this offense is going to be. Worthy goes out, I think that totally changes what they do. He was supposed to be the guy. He was the guy who was going to take the top off. He was going to be the explosive guy. Now he's out. So now the question is why haven't they gone to Kelce a little more than they have? And, it seems like they've gone the Juju a little bit more, but I think they're going to have to definitely lean on the run game, and it's going to have to be the two-headed monster because Pacheco, unfortunately, great talent, but gets himself hurt for running too hard. I understand the effort, but there's a point where you got to kind of tone it down. So I think you'll see that and a lot of Kareem Hunt in the second half, and the Chiefs what they do, the magic playbook.
I saw Kareem Hunt in behind the line pretty early on their first possession. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I drafted him in a fantasy league because I figured Pacheco would get hurt at some point. I didn't actually think like he'd have a featured role early on, and there he was on the first possession. I'm like, maybe Pacheco isn't ready.
No, I think it's just one of those things where because he's a solid receiving back, because you lose a pair of hands with Worthy being out, your offense kind of has to morph a bit. So now you're going to probably do a little more passing out of the backfield.
And like you said, Kelce, not a whole lot seen from either, and that's someone that really needs a rebound from last year if he has anything left in the tank at all. So that's a little bit of a surprise. That kind of like makes you think like, okay, maybe he is over the hill. If Patrick's still either not able to or not prone to try and get him involved in the offense again after the miserable last season.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do is to get everybody else involved, and then kind of bring Travis in to kind of finish him off, kind of to be the dagger. But right now he's going to have to be more. He's going to have to be more involved in this offense. He's going to have to be what they've used him for in the years past. He's going to have to be that guy. With Worthy out, you got to figure out what's going to work, and if that means dinking and dunking and having him sitting in zones, picking up 7-8 yards at a clip, then he's got to be that guy.
Do you think the slower pace of this game is more due to the offensive struggling, or do you think the defenses are just playing well?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's the first game of the season, so you're really, for the first time, really seeing different things than if it's preseason. Because preseason, it's vanilla offense. Everybody knows what you're doing. You're just trying to get timing down and just get into rhythms. So no, I think this is the first game, so now they're seeing things that they haven't seen before. So it's just, I think the defenses have been good. I think the Chargers defense has been fast. I think they play a little faster than I think the Chiefs maybe thought. And at certain points of the game, they've gotten the Patrick, and other times, that offensive line has held up well for the Chiefs. So it's going to be one of those things where the Chiefs are just going to are going to have to keep Patrick upright, and they're just going to have to go with the quick toss attack.
Analyzing our thoughts that this would be the year that's not so easy for the Chiefs in the AFC West, and someone knocks them off the perch. So it's kind of teasing us a little bit in this first game that maybe we're right, and the Chiefs will start to fall down a little bit.
Well, I think the second half's going to tell a lot. If they end up losing this game and the offense seems out of sorts, then I think they're going to kind of look at it and try to figure some things out. It's only week one, but it's important. It's a divisional game, so they got to figure it out. On the other side, I think it gives the Chargers a lot of hope, a lot of pep in the step. They're going to be like, okay, week one, we took out the Chiefs. Let's keep it going. So both can sit there and look at this game at the end of it. Chargers win. They're like, all right, we did what we needed to do. We're looking good. Let's build on that. If the Chiefs lose, all right, well, this is kind of new for us. Let's figure this out. People expect us to be there at the end. Then let's figure it out.
To double down on your point about the it only being week one. We talked about this before where, you shorten the preseason, you don't really get a dress rehearsal game. So the first couple of weeks of the season, that has a negative, detrimental effect on how this regular season starts.
Oh yeah, if you go back, 10, 15 years ago, your starters were playing, week 4 of the, preseason. So that there's a lot to that. Some people feel that, the starters should play more in the preseason. Other people are of the ilk that, you have, these two, dual team practices, and that basically makes up for not playing in the preseason. So I think it just depends on your thought and ideology about it. But at the end of the day, it could be hurting some of these teams. It could be hurting the Chiefs. They're a team that's built on timing. Their offense and that first play alone with them running into each other. Travis and Xavier. This team is built on timing. The way the offense rolls. If your timing isn't there, it's not going to work.
Do you think trust could be an issue too? Because it feels like we're talking about this topic for 3 years in a row now. As far as Patrick's got to trust somebody other than Kelce, and now that Kelce looks like he's continues to kind of like fall off more and more, it's becoming a lot more obvious that there's no one that Patrick trusts, and Hollywood Brown hasn't really gotten involved here. You've got Worthy injured at the moment. He hasn't mixed in the running back so far. Juju's out there, but Juju's, you can't really rely too much. So is this kind of refocusing, like this conversation we've talked so much about Patrick doesn't have any holes to throw to?
I don't think it's a trust factor. It's just, the way the plays break down. It's a situation where Mahomes runs out, and those guys have to try to get to those spots. When the play breaks down, it's kind of hard for these guys to know where he's going with the ball. Travis is a different kind of situation because it's not like he's 15, 20 yards downfield. He's sitting there in the middle of the field. So it's, I don't want to use the term easier, but in a way it is, because Travis works in a finite box and that's it. Hollywood Brown, Worthy, those guys are 15, 20 yards, even 30 yards downfield, so they've got to turn around, see what Patrick's doing, and then make their way back. I think Patrick trusts them. It's just the way the plays break down, whether they're going to be available or not. Yeah, they've got to make the catches. They've got to, they got to show what it's all about. They got to make the plays. But I think if they didn't trust those guys, they wouldn't be playing.
See, and you brought up something that also maybe this is part of the issue too, is there's Travis who has to stay close, maybe whether by age or just his game, and those guys that go down the field. So there's nothing in the middle. So maybe there's also maybe it's also a design thing to the offense. There's no balance in the offense between home run threat and short game dump off.
Yeah, I honestly don't think this team can go back to the days of the deep home run ball with like Tyreek Hill. This team, I don't think, is really built that way. I don't think you can trust Hollywood Brown. There's a health issue. It just doesn't seem to be working. It's still only the first game of the season, but I think you really need to hang your hat on the run game and try to keep it in the middle of the field and then slowly try to build up to it. Right now, I don't think they're built for the deep game right now.
That's wild to me because we're used to Patrick Mahomes, when he first came onto the scene, putting up all these dazzling, numbers and, spectacular plays and whatnot. And that's obviously not going to happen as much when the offense evolves or maybe devolves to that kind of point we're
Oh
discussing.
yeah, but like you said, he was young. He's been in the league for a while now. And don't forget, yeah, as you're running quarterback, as you age, you're going to get slower. Like it's there's going to be another couple of years where he's not going to be doing the 15-yard first down runs and all of that. So now he has to kind of look at his game too and say, okay, well, I have to fit my game into this offense, and this is what I have. I've got to work it here because right now these guys, we can't do what we did 5, 6 years ago. I don't have the guys to do it, and I don't feel that we're built that way. That's why you brought in Pacheco. He was going to be a guy who was going to bring out the run game, and it was going to take a load off of Patrick. Right now, that's not happening. So you got to revert back to what works. Run the ball, go two-headed monster, and then see what happens. See if the Chargers can match you up that way.
It's and they looking at the first half numbers, the completion percentage between Mahomes and Herbert is almost identical, 12 for 18, 12 for 21, but Herbert's got almost twice as many yards as Mahomes.
Yeah, because
So
they were able to exploit that defense and throw the ball deep a bit, which was totally different than what the Chiefs have been able to do. They've unfortunately, once with Worthy goes out, they're kind of just dinking and dunking and hoping that one of these guys can break a long run. So I don't know if it's also an issue with this defense of the Chiefs, where before I don't think you would see Herbie really kind of chewing them up like he did in the first, especially in the first quarter.
yeah,
He was throwing dots all over the place. So it could be just some miscommunication, trying to figure things out. If that continues in the second half, then it could be a situation where maybe the Chiefs have some holes in certain places. But I think the Chiefs have really got to get the ball. They had that great that first drive, that long drive, but they've got to put 7 up.
forecast the second half before we toss it back to the game. Do you, from what we've seen as far as the Chiefs struggling and not really finding a rhythm, do you kind of expect more of that to continue? You kind of think they'll get back into it? Do you think the Chargers will kind of change their play calling and go back to attacking them a little bit more aggressively? What's your kind of predictions for second
I
half?
think I think the Chargers are going to stick with what they were doing because they were successful. They just have to finish it off. So I think finishing it off means running the ball a little bit more. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the Chargers just need to finish. They've proven that they can move the ball on this defense. They just have to score points. They have to finish. When it comes to the Chiefs, they've got to find some balance. Like I said, use the two-headed monster you got, Kareem Hunt and Pacheco, and then go from there. I don't think you can sit back there and try to take long shots all day because the Chargers defense is solid enough to get pressure and they've got a quality secondary. So I think you kind of have to sit there, and if that means you got to keep the Chargers offense on the bench and take these long drives, then that's what you got to do.
Finish it off. Hell, you drafted this kid in the first or the first round, I guess, and this young dynamic running back. Use him.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't pick him up to have him run 10 times and that's it. Like let him be the guy, and if that's what's going to get you the win, that's it. Like go ahead, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, stop playing around because this one possession game thing, like we said earlier, is a dangerous one to play, and the Chargers need to get some more points on the board in very quickly.
That's right. You finish it early because if you keep them around one score or less, the Chiefs can come back and beat you. They proved that especially last year.
Well, Bucks McGee, the second half is underway. We will get back to watching this one sure take us off air with our little halftime special of the Sao Paulo game.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah, it's all right. But at the end of the day, football's football, so we'll take it wherever we can watch it.